I'm going to lay out a story for you that is still hard for me to believe happened, even now. It's about property rights, community arrogance, and how one pink blazer-wearing woman pushed me past my breaking point, all because of a footbridge. I call her Priscilla Vance, and she's the reason I found myself standing on my own land one morning, staring at a smoking pile of splinters where my bridge used to be. My place is called Willow Creek Ranch. It's 50 acres of rolling pasture and thick oak woods, bought by my great-grandfather back in 1928. The bridge was a simple thing, really, rough-hewn cedar, spanning the creek that marks the back boundary of the property. I built it years ago with my dad. It was just a weekend project, but it meant everything to us. It was the only way to get to the back pasture without taking the long way around, and it was a memory. That morning, I stepped outside with my coffee, and the silence felt wrong. It wasn't the usual quiet of the ranch. It was the profound, dead silence that comes after a violent act. I walked toward the creek, and that's when I saw it. The bridge wasn't gone because of a storm or old age. It was surgically, violently disassembled, chainsawed into wreckage and dumped into the running water like an executed thing. And there she was, standing on the opposite bank, arms crossed, sunglasses shining like polished brass. Priscilla Vance, president of the Homeowners Association next door, wearing a smug, self-satisfied look that clearly screamed, "I fixed your problem." Behind her, the work crew she hired scrambled into their pickups the second they saw me charging down the slope. They didn't try to explain or apologize. They just burned rubber, spitting gravel, like they knew exactly how illegal the whole operation was. The wildest part? I'm not in their HOA. I've never signed a single document. My 50 acres aren't even within the legal boundary of their pretentious little development, the residences at Stonegate. But that didn't stop Priscilla from believing that anything her eyes could land on was subject to her jurisdiction. My family has worked this land for nearly a century. We thought the ranch would always stay simple, quiet, predictable. But then Stonegate went up, a monument to identical mailboxes and overpriced stucco. I didn't mind having new neighbors, honestly. I just minded that the new neighbors brought along the most entitled, self-important busybody I've ever met, Priscilla Vance. The first complaint came less than a month after they moved in. A formal letter printed on creamy, gold-embossed stationery, informing me that my herd of cattle was disturbing the peace by making too much noise. Cows, on a cattle ranch, making noise. I laughed so hard I nearly choked on my oatmeal. I wrote a quick, polite note back. Cows moo. That's their job. Respectfully, J. Vance. I figured that would be the end of it, a simple misunderstanding. It was not. The letters kept coming. My fence was too old. My barn was an aesthetic blight because of the peeling paint. My equipment shed needed visual uniformity. She was trying to drag my ranch into her HOA through sheer force of will, but I ignored it all. I knew my rights. I knew the county map, and I knew her authority ended precisely where my fence began. Then they found the bridge. I'll admit, the footbridge wasn't a masterpiece of engineering. It was built from salvaged timber, a bit weathered, the planks slightly sun-bleached, but it was solid, and it had character. To me, it was a physical artifact of a memory. Dad and I, thermos of black coffee, country music on the radio, hammering planks together. To Priscilla, it was an unsightly, hazardous structure disrupting the premium ambience of the neighborhood. I remember the day she walked right up to the creek, wearing a blinding pink power blazer, staring at the bridge like it had personally insulted her. "This will need to be permanently removed," she stated, her voice tight and precise. I just laughed, a dry, genuine chuckle. "That's not a suggestion, Priscilla. It's a directive," she snapped, narrowing her eyes. "A directive from who? The HOA? I'm not in your HOA. Anything viewed from Stonegate property falls under HOA regulation," she recited, as if quoting a sacred text. There it was again, that magical, invented rule. If we can see it, we own it. I told her plainly, "This bridge is staying. Get off my land." She didn't raise her voice. She didn't argue. She just gave me this cold, satisfied little smile that promised she wasn't done. And that smile was my warning. Things got weird after that. I started seeing people near the creek, strangers in reflective vests, carrying clipboards, whispering, and taking photos of my bridge. The next day, I actually saw a couple of HOA board members on their balconies with binoculars, aimed straight at my land. They weren't even trying to hide it. Then came the final letter, bold red text screaming, "Final notice regarding unsafe structure." It demanded immediate removal, citing public danger, visual disruption, and, my personal favorite, non-compliance with neighborhood design cohesion. I didn't reply. I should have seen it coming, but I never imagined the depths of her entitlement. The next morning, the sound woke me up, the deep, steady growl of chainsaws. When I rounded the corner and saw what they were doing to the bridge, I swear, something primal snapped inside me. Not just anger, but a raw, gut-deep violation. They were ripping apart a piece of my family's history. The men cutting the beams looked uncomfortable, glancing over their shoulders, but Priscilla was standing on the bank, tapping her foot, radiating triumph. "Good morning," she said, as if commenting on the weather. "What in God's name do you think you're doing?" I demanded, my voice dangerously low. "Removing an unauthorized structure for the safety of the community," she replied, cool as ice. "This is my land, my bridge. You are trespassing, and you are destroying private property." "It was visible from HOA property," she shrugged. "So it fell under our standards." I pulled out my phone. "I'm calling the sheriff." The moment the workers heard the word sheriff, they panicked. The saws died instantly. They threw their tools into their trucks and tore out of there, nearly sideswiping each other in the rush. Priscilla didn't chase them. She just turned back to me, her composure only slightly ruffled. "You're making this harder than it needs to be, Jake," she said, brushing imaginary dust off her blazer. But the damage was done. The memory was in pieces, floating in the creek. And in that moment, all the annoyance and restraint I'd given her for months hardened into one very clear decision. Priscilla Vance had crossed a line, and I was going to make damn sure she regretted it. I didn't waste time on yelling. I moved straight to cold, methodical action. I took photos from every angle. The muddy tire tracks, the fresh sawdust, the clean-cut beam ends. I filmed Priscilla's triumphant face and her absurd claim of jurisdiction. I documented everything an attorney would need. First call, Officer Reyes at the sheriff's office. He came out, took one look at the wreckage, and whistled. "Looks deliberate, Jake. If you're not in their HOA, they don't have a leg to stand on. This is criminal damage." Second call, Mr. Sterling, my lawyer. He was sharp, calm, and absolutely ruthless when it came to property law. I emailed him the files. "That they admitted to ordering the demolition on non-HOA land," he told me, "is a very important detail. We're drafting a demand letter today." I felt the control return to me. Priscilla had acted on emotion and arrogance. I was going to fight back with evidence and law. I didn't have to wait long for Priscilla's response. She struck back faster than a rattlesnake. The very next morning, I found a crumpled envelope shoved into my gate. No postage, just aggressive, loopy handwriting. The letter began, "We will not pay you a single cent." She declared the bridge illegal, a danger, and, get this, that it disrupted the architectural harmony of the subdivision. Then came the line that made Mr. Sterling rub his hands together. "Any future structures you attempt to build on your property that are visible from the HOA community will be removed without warning." I forwarded the threat. Mr. Sterling's reply was instant. "This is excellent for us. It proves intent and overreach." She just handed us half the case. A few days later, I found a small metal badge in the grass near the creek, a contractor ID. I called the company. After threatening to hand the badge and their details directly to the sheriff for trespassing, the manager stammered out the truth. "We were told the HOA owned the land, sir." She, Priscilla, said it was urgent and claimed full ownership. Priscilla Vance hadn't just vandalized property. She had lied to the board, to the contractors, and tried to defraud a business. Officer Reyes came back out that afternoon. She claimed ownership? That's another charge, Jake. This just keeps getting better for you. Priscilla escalated one final, desperate time. She didn't send another letter. She filed an injunction against me, claiming I was building dangerous structures and threatening the community. I nearly dropped my coffee cup when Mr. Sterling told me. "She's panicking," he said. "This kind of behavior tells me she knows she's losing. She's grasping at straws, but it only strengthens our case that she's acting in retaliation." The real showdown came a week later when the official court summons arrived. Not for me, but for the HOA. The judge, an older woman with eyes like polished stones, had reviewed our filings, the footage, the contractor's statement, and Priscilla's written threats. The courthouse was small, but the tension was enormous. Priscilla arrived dressed for a gala, a bright pink jacket, pearls, heels clicking like gunshots, marching in with her chin high, refusing to look at me. The rest of the HOA board members looked miserable, like men headed for a firing squad. Mr. Sterling presented everything: the farm history, the video, the threats. When he played the audio recording from the HOA meeting, where Priscilla publicly ranted about her absolute jurisdiction, the entire courtroom turned to stare at her. Her face flushed a violent red. Then it was her turn. She stood, too confidently, and approached the bench. "Your Honor," she began, voice trembling with false sincerity, "I was acting in the best interest of my community." The structure was unsightly and posed a threat. "Ms. Vance," the judge cut her off sharply, "visibility does not equal ownership or authority. Please explain why you believed you had the right to demolish something outside your boundaries." Priscilla faltered. She opened her mouth, closed it, and opened it again. Her composure cracked. The whole room held its breath. Finally, in a shaky voice dripping with pure, unadulterated anger, she snapped, "Because it was ugly." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Even Mr. Sterling froze. The judge just stared at her, her expression turning glacial. "We're done here," the judge said, her voice cutting through the silence. "I've heard enough." In that moment, Priscilla Vance finally defeated herself. Her arrogance had become her undoing. The judge delivered her ruling without blinking. The Homeowner Association, represented by Ms. Vance, has admitted to ordering the demolition of a privately owned structure on private land that does not fall under HOA authority. Furthermore, their communications show a pattern of harassment and an assumption of jurisdiction where none exists. Then came the hammer. This court finds in favor of the plaintiff on all counts. The Homeowner Association is liable for the destruction of the bridge, the cost of debris removal, property damage, and associated legal fees. The total amount is $8,000. $8,000. I felt a rush of vindication wash over me. But the judge wasn't finished. "In addition," she continued, "I am ordering a formal inquiry into the Homeowner Association's conduct, documentation practices, and decision-making processes. If evidence of fraudulent or falsified records is found, further legal action will be taken." Priscilla collapsed into her chair, her eyes glistening. But before she could even process the judgment, a member of her own board stood up, followed by another. "Your Honor," one of them said, voice wavering, "the board, we didn't authorize this. We were told the bridge was on HOA land. We trusted her." Another board member stepped forward and dropped the real bombshell. "Your Honor, we were given a map, one that showed his fence line inside our boundary. Ms. Vance said he had moved it." The judge stared at Priscilla, her tone icy. "You misrepresented legal boundaries to your board to justify destroying private property. That is not a mistake. That is deception." Priscilla's jaw dropped. The judge hammered the gavel down. "Case closed." As I walked out of the courthouse, Priscilla approached, heels clicking sharply. "You ruined everything," she hissed under her breath. I met her gaze. "You did that yourself, Priscilla." She spun on her heel and stormed out, her board members staying behind, apologizing to me, trying to salvage whatever dignity they had left. The real closure, though, came a few days later. I was sitting on my porch when 3 pickup trucks pulled up. It was Hank, the old rancher from down the road, Tom, the guy who runs the hardware store, and Charlie, a retired engineer from town. "You didn't think we were going to let you rebuild this thing alone, did you?" Charlie called out, rolling out a blueprint over Hank's hood. "Looks like we beat you to the planning stage." The new bridge, they decided, wouldn't be just a simple wooden structure. It would be reinforced cedar, slightly arched, with solar lighting and a bench built from the salvaged wood of the old bridge. Something sturdy enough to last another 100 years. For the next week, the ranch was filled with the sound of hammers and laughter. The board members from Stonegate even came by, not to complain, but to apologize and confirm that Priscilla had been stripped of her presidency. They were cooperating fully with the inquiry. The day we finished, the sun dipped low, casting warm gold across the new cedar structure. It was beautiful, not grand, not fancy, but honest, strong, dependable, and born out of community, not destruction. Priscilla Vance set out to break something she didn't like. Instead, she accidentally built something she never intended. A community that finally stood up to her, and a symbol of resilience right on the edge of my property line. My victory wasn't the $8,000 judgment. My victory was the quiet satisfaction of standing on that new bridge, realizing that while a battle can break a lot of things, the rebuilding, done right, can heal far more than the battle ever broke. Now, I want to know what you think. If you were me, after winning the lawsuit and rebuilding the bridge, would you feel like justice was done? Or would you have found a way to take a more satisfying revenge on Priscilla, maybe through legal means or something else entirely? Drop a comment below and let me know your take on this, because sometimes the line between right and wrong isn't as clear as the line on a county map. And make sure to hit that subscribe button, because trust me, there are plenty more HOA meltdowns coming.